Hi there, this is Chris, Chap in the Cap, Motor Legends. Today is very simple. I'm going to try to talk you through the entire range of Klim's adventure suits. There are 7 in total, and please don't forget, if you like what you hear, if you like what you see, please like and subscribe. We love Klim. We're not doolally fanboys, we don't love everything they do, but they do make some great gear, they tend to use the best components and technologies, and they put the gear together really well. And it does what it's meant to do. But they make lots of different suits, and understanding the difference between the various models is not straightforward. But we've been working with Klim for a few years now. We've spent quite a bit of time with various members of their design, their marketing and their product development teams. And so by now we have a pretty good understanding of how the different pieces of their particular jigsaw fit together. And we think that it's more important with Klim than with other brands that you know what you're buying into. And that's because their gear is often very different to what we see from the European brands. Plus there are lots of differences between their suits. Sometimes those differences are quite subtle, sometimes they're not. The reason we felt compelled to put this video together is that it has become apparent to us that a lot of people simply don't understand the Klim range. And as a result, they're often buying gear that is totally inappropriate for their needs. In truth, we see this with all brands, but it's particularly prevalent with Klim. I think one of the problems here is that Klim is perceived to be the brand to buy when you ride or own an adventure bike. And it is true that Klim stands on a bit of a pedestal in the adventure market. But at times this causes people to make rash, ill-considered and ill-informed decisions. The breadth of the Klim range is huge, and it's not always easy to come by, and as a result of that, people sometimes end up buying the wrong stuff for the kind of riding they do. All too often it becomes clear to us that somebody has spent a considerable amount of money on a Klim outfit, largely based on the fact that the suit matches the colour of their bike. And for these people, the assumption has often been that because Klim is associated with adventure riding, the suit they have bought must be okay for them. And obviously, that's often not going to be the case. The other problem here, of course, is that there are so many different interpretations of adventure riding. For some, adventure riding is about extreme off-roading in inhospitable parts of the world. For some, it's about long-distance touring. For many, of course, it's little more than an exercise in styling, about looking the part when you fill up your aluminium panniers for your weekly shop at Waitrose. Anyway, what we're going to do today is talk through what we see as the 7 key suits in the Klim range. It is not our aim to sell any of these suits to you. In fact, that is never our way. What we're going to try and do is give you a brief outline of every model. We'll touch on each model's strengths and weaknesses, we'll talk about what kind of riding each suit is intended for, and we'll talk about the kind of rider that each suit is suited to. The rest, I have to say, is up to you. The Badlands is Klim's halo product. It sits at the very top of their off-road collection, and they've thrown absolutely everything at it. In their world, it's the best of the best. It's a technical tour de force, it's got to be admitted. It's a feat of tailored engineering. Now, the suit is constructed from a 3-layer Gore-Tex laminated fabric that in the A3 Pro model, and I stress that because there are 2 different Badlands models, in the A3 Pro model, the suit delivers a near unique rating for abrasion resistance of AAA. I say unique, but unique for a Gore-Tex garment. Now, that achievement seems to impress a lot of people, but our view has long been that protection from abrasion is nowhere near as important as protection from impacts in an off-road suit. The Badlands has every bell and whistle that the product designers could throw at it, but we don't offer the Badlands because we think it's just too much of a suit for most riders. It's too big, it's too baggy, it's too heavy. Of course, that may simply be that our customers are not the kind of riders that the Badlands is aimed at. Here at Motor Legends, we greatly value comfort. Obviously, we're mindful of everything else that's important in a suit, but to ride well and to ride safely, you have to be comfortable on the bike. And no one would ever suggest that comfort is what the Badlands is all about. It is heavier than any suit we've ever come across, and the fit is very boxy, making it less than ideal for road riding in our view. Last year we had a meeting here in Guildford with Klim's product designers to discuss future products. Now in that meeting, one of the guys referred to the Badlands as the suit for the world traveller, and for us that for the first time made a lot of sense. If you're going to spend years circumnavigating the globe, you'd want a suit that was tough enough to withstand whatever might be thrown at it in every conceivable situation and in every imaginable climatic condition. And for such an undertaking, the Badlands might just be the perfect travelling companion. But for touring Spain or a weekend in Wales, well, not so much perhaps. The Karlsbad sits one rung below the Badlands in Klim's hierarchy, or rather in their off-road hierarchy. It's a two-layer Gore-Tex laminated suit, so like the Badlands, waterproofing will be guaranteed for life and obviously it's never going to wet out. The Karlsbad is much lighter than the Badlands and it's much easier to wear. It's a well-vented suit, but it's somewhat stripped out in a way that I've got to say we quite like. And that's to say, it doesn't come with anything like a thermal liner, you don't get a kidney belt, for example, and so on. And what that means is that you can decide what's important to you and you can bring your own accessories, your own layers to the party. Now, the Karlsbad has been around for quite a while, and indeed a revised version is on the horizon. Where the Karlsbad is starting to show its age a little is in this stiffness of the outer fabric. And in truth, that's how laminated garments used to be. The fit is quite big and boxy, like the Badlands. In truth, that's very much the American aesthetic, but such a fit is perhaps more suited to a proper off-road suit because what it does, it allows you to move around freely on the bike when you're riding off-road. The suit is rated AA for abrasion resistance under EN 17092 and it comes fully equipped with a full suite of D30 level 2 armour. Protection-wise, that's what you look for in a suit like this. Now, in keeping with its off-road focus, the trousers are quite wide and baggy, and this is what you would expect. After all, this is the kind of pant that you might be wearing over something like a huge off-road Alpenstars Tech 7 boot. But what this means is that the trousers won't work as well over a slimmer touring boot, something, I don't know, like a Daytona Roadstar. And I mention this because we know that a lot of people over here look at wearing the Karlsbad for on-road touring and for commuting. Now, sometimes, and I don't want to sound too rude, but sometimes people carrying a little bit of timber like the Karlsbad jacket because it has slightly generous dimensions. But what you need to bear in mind is that for this kind of riding, the pants may not always work as well as the jacket. Finally, and I'm going to mention this just once, it's an issue that applies not just to the Karlsbad trouser, but to pretty much every trouser in the Klim range. What we find is that, and we find it not infrequently, is that even when the leg length is correct, we sit you on the bike and we find the correct leg length, even when the leg length is correct, the armour nonetheless sits too high. Now, we have discussed this many times with Klim, and we hope that behind the scenes that they are doing something about it. But this is one of the reasons why, if you want a Klim suit, we think you should come and see us. We will tell you if the armour is wrong. But the good news is that whilst it will never be an inexpensive alteration, we can normally unsew and move the armour pockets down to get the armour into the correct position. For us, a proper adventure or off-road suit does not have a laminated membrane, or indeed any kind of fixed waterproof liner. And that's because if you're riding anywhere really hot, or if you're generating your own heat off-road, a membrane will make it harder for you to sweat and thereby stay cool. Now, some might point to the benefits of direct-to-body venting that comes, or the direct-to-body venting that comes from a laminated suit. But the fact is that no amount of venting will fully compensate for the lack of breathability that is conferred by a waterproof membrane. The vents will only work when you're moving at speed, and if you're riding off-road down small tracks or maybe through a town, the vents just won't do much. Nor will they help much if you're wearing an airbag or if you're riding with a bike or on a bike with a big screen, something like a GS, for example. What has to be acknowledged is that a lot of off-road riding in America is very different to the kind of riding we do over here. Over there, they have thousands of miles of tracks in the way that we just don't. And so when you're spending many hours riding these kinds of roads, a laminated outfit might perhaps make more sense. Over here in Europe, a classic adventure suit is characterized by a removable waterproof liner, which, when done optimally, can be worn either on the inside or on the outside of the protective layer. Slightly ironically perhaps, given that Klim is the name in adventure riding, Klim doesn't do this type of adventure suit. They offer laminated suits like the Badlands and the Karlsbad, which we've discussed already, or they offer suits like this one, the Baja S4, which comes with no membrane at all. And I have to say, suits like this work for us. because what it means is that you can bring your own internal and external layers to the party as you see fit. Now, we will come on to talk about other Klim outfits without membranes. Specifically in the road category, there's the Marrakesh and the Induction Pro. In fact, the Baja S4 is quite similar to the Induction Pro. What differentiates it is really its fit. Now, the Baja S4 has been in the Klim range for quite a while. There's a new version for 25, and in fact, this is that new version, although in truth, it's not very different to its predecessor. But the S4 sits totally at the other end of the spectrum from Klim's laminated off-road suits. If potentially the problem with those suits, and I'm talking about the Badlands and the Karlsbad, if the problem with those suits is a lack of breathability, the only question here is whether the Baja S4 flows too much air. And the answer is that it doesn't if you're doing the right kind of riding. Now, in their marketing blurb, Klim states that the Baja S4 is born for open deserts, towering sand dunes and humid jungles. And I have to say, I think that's about right. This is the suit for those riding in the most extreme of conditions, riding through the toughest of terrains and in the hottest of climates. Now, I recently served a gentleman in the shop who had come off sports bikes and had acquired his first adventure bike. He had been to another retailer and he had bought himself a Baja S4 for his daily commute. He was very excited about it all, so I didn't have the heart to tell him that he had almost certainly made a huge mistake. A mistake that if he'd come to see us, I think we would have tried to prevent him making. Now, the Baja S4 is a very serious off-road suit. It is not a road riding outfit. For some people, the S4 will be the perfect setup. If I was going to be crossing the Sahara, this I think is the suit that I would want. As with all of Klim's off-road suits, and as you would expect, the fit is quite baggy and loose to aid mobility on the bike. But the S4 is undoubtedly comfortable, and that's partly down to the fact that a good proportion of the chassis of the jacket comprises the same stretchy fabric that is used on the uber-comfortable Marrakesh. Now, the Marrakesh flows a good amount of air, enough air for most of us, but most of the chassis of the S4 jacket and pant is made from this micromesh material that flows a huge amount of air. This is a much more breathable fabric than the fabric that's used on the Marrakesh. And that's fantastic when you're trying to stay cool, but less fantastic perhaps when you're trying to stay warm. The suit is rated AA for abrasion resistance under EN 17092 and comes with a full suite of D30 level 1 armour. And we simply don't understand that. In some respects, one might suggest that the S4 is the most serious off-road suit in the Klim range. Oops, sorry, I called it Klim there. Bit of a mistake, I meant Klim. As a consequence, we think that this particular outfit merits level 2 armour, and certainly if we were to use the Baja S4 in the manner that it's intended for, that's what we would want, and so we would upgrade it. The Kodiak is Klim's top laminated suit. It's a 3-layer Gore-Tex laminated outfit, so from a waterproofing perspective, it just does not get better than that. Rather like they did with the Badlands, Klim has thrown everything at the Kodiak, and it's quite a piece. It's well vented, has more pockets than you'll ever be able to locate, comes with a Maverick down, jacket as a thermal liner, you get a kidney belt and so on. It's as though the team at Klim sat down to brainstorm everything that you could possibly build into a jacket, and then they just went ahead and incorporated them all. Now, sometimes the whole of something is more than the sum of its parts, but I suppose sometimes it is less. All we can say is that whilst the jacket is incredibly well equipped, the Kodiak is not the easiest jacket to wear. It's a great bit of kit, but maybe there's just too much going on. Some people will be disappointed that the Kodiak suit is only rated single A for abrasion resistance, although then again, there are lots of people who just don't understand the EN 17092 and what it really means. Now, the reason that the Kodiak is only single A rated is that Klim added some areas of stretch fabric in the shoulders and underneath the arms to make it more comfortable. Whether they knew at the time when they did this that that would compromise the CE rating is not known. But it's a shame in that most people would expect a suit like this to come AA rated. Now, of course, Rucker's superlative Nivala and Comfort R suit are also both single A rated. The saving grace with the Ruckers, however, is that they come with Rucker's huge bespoke level 2 D30 armour. That contributes both to impact protection and to abrasion resistance, such that one can state with a degree of confidence that a single A rated Rucker outfit is going to be more protective than anybody else's AA rated outfit. But I'm not sure that one can say quite the same about the Kodiak. Yes, it comes with level 2 D3O, whereas many AA rated suits and AAA rated suits only have level 1 armour, but the Kodiak gets standard size D3O, not the humongous stuff that Rocket uses. Whatever its potential failings, the Kodiak jacket is a deeply impressive bit of kit, but the trousers are somewhat more flawed, and for us the main issue is that they are simply too wide for road riding. This comes, we feel, out of Klim's assumption that even road riders will be wearing huge adventure boots. Now, in their world back in the US, that might be a reasonable assumption, but it's less so over here. In Europe, one might expect a road riding trouser to work over something like, I don't know, a Daytona Roadstar or even a shorter ankle boot. Well, arguably, the Kodiak pant simply doesn't. The Latitude is Klim's second tier road riding suit. It's a 2-layer rather than a 3-layer Gore-Tex laminated suit, and 2-layer outfits tend to be more comfortable. But it's not just the fact that the Latitude is 2-layer rather than 3-layer that makes the Latitude easier to live with than the Kodiak. It's also the fact that there's just less going on. It's a lighter jacket, it's a softer jacket, it's a more pliable jacket. It's going to be both nicer to ride in and nicer to walk around in. But whilst there's less going on, you still get all the stuff you need. So you get a zillion pockets, you get lots of vents, a myriad of adjusters and so on. The Latitude certainly isn't short of features. In some ways, however, the Latitude suffers in comparison with its predecessor because there was a version before the current one came to market. Now, because that version came in Euro sizing, it came in more sizes. And with Klim, that's a weak point, that's always important. Impressively, the old jacket also came in long and short body configurations. Again, impressive. Like the Kodiak, the Latitude is A-rated under EN 17092 for abrasion resistance. And again, it's because Klim has added stretch material for extra comfort. Now, the old Latitude was AA rated, so in some ways the new one represents somewhat of a downgrade, one might suggest. And then of course there's the armour. It's level 1, whereas in the previous incarnation it was level 2. And in our book that's a real shame, because level 2 might have gone some way towards mitigating the A rating for abrasion resistance. As with the Kodiak, the legs on the Latitude pants also work better on off-road boots than on on-road ones. But the flare is less exaggerated with the Latitude pants than they are with the Kodiak pants. Overall, we really like the Latitude. For us, it easily outsells the Kodiak. And that may be because here in the shop, people get to try on the two outfits head to head, so to speak. And in such a comparison, the Latitude is most likely to come out the winner. And that's largely because, or we feel it's because, people realise that the Latitude is just going to be easier to live with. The Marrakesh is our favourite motorcycle jacket. It's not just our favourite Klim motorcycle jacket, it's not just our favourite high airflow jacket, it's our favourite motorcycle jacket, full stop. It's perhaps not the most protective jacket we sell, and there are jackets that actually flow more air, but there's nothing can hold a candle to the Marrakesh when it comes to comfort. And the stretch fabric means that it's the perfect item of protective wear when one starts to talk about layering. Comfortable as the Marrakesh is, the jacket, or the chassis of the jacket, combines 1000 denier cordura with elastane. Now, 1000 denier cordura is super heavy, super strong. Your average rucker jacket will start out with a cordura that's maybe 650 denier or 750 denier. And so, given that the Marrakesh starts with 1000 denier cordura, it's perhaps not surprising that it passes the EN 17092 abrasion test at the AA level. The level 1 Ghost contributes further to the jackets and the pants comfort, but in truth, we'd probably choose to upgrade to the new level 2 D3O Diablo armour. With that armour, you get a higher safety rating, it is softer, it's not much heavier, and it's much more breathable. The way we see it, there's only an upside here. And indeed, we do offer a preferential part exchange scheme when you buy a new Marrakesh. For us, the Marrakesh works best when combined with layers to enable you to ride comfortably in every conceivable climatic condition. So, you wear the Klim Zephyr to protect you from the pernicious effects of wind chill and to provide a degree of insulation. You wear a Maverick down jacket to trap heat coming from the body, and a Scott waterproof to go on the outside for when it rains. And so with one jacket and 3 little bundles, you can ride anywhere in the world and be protected from whatever the elements throw at you. And what's more, you can ride comfortably. There's a matching Marrakesh pant too, it's the same as the jacket, and so it's equally comfortable. It will flow more air than our Roka jeans, but they don't look as stylish in our view. One of the things we would say is that because there's very little contrast detailing on either the jacket or the pant, wearing the two halves together, especially in the same colour, can make it look as though you've gone out for a ride in your pyjamas. Of course, this might just be us, but because of this, we do often pair the Marrakesh jacket with Klim's Outrider pants or their switchback pants, both of which are quite breathable. Although for most of our riding, we prefer to wear the Marrakesh over a pair of Roka jeans. There's one other thing with the pants. Klim has narrowed the legs such that they will only really work over an ankle boot, although here in the shop last week I did see one customer who managed to get them over a pair of Daytona Roadstars. I think it was a bit of a struggle. For us, the narrow leg on the Marrakesh pant is a touch disappointing because we think that the Marrakesh pants can be great for riding off-road, but we suspect that Klim has done this on purpose because they probably wanted to prevent them cannibalising sales from some of the other pants in their range. The Klim Induction Pro is basically a Marrakesh that has been subject to a course of steroids to beef it up a little. It does the same kind of job as the Marrakesh, and in a number of respects one might suggest that it does it better, but not in every respect. And that's because it's just not as comfortable and because it's got a far more kind of bikey look. Fact is, not everybody wants to look like a courier or an Uber Eats rider when they pop into somewhere for a cup of coffee. A proportion of the outer shell uses the same 1000 denier Cordura material that is used on the Marrakesh, but a much larger part of the jacket comprises a micro mesh material that, as with the Baja S4, frankly flows much more air than the Marrakesh. The problem with bikers is that if you present them with an option with something that can be turned up to 11, automatically they just want it. And in terms of airflow, it has to be admitted that the Induction Pro is but a Marrakesh that has been turned up to 11. But the truth is that even Klim acknowledges that this outfit was created for riders in states like Texas, Florida and Georgia. It was not really designed for places like the UK, so it raises the spectre as to whether the induction flows simply too much air for us pasty-faced Brits. And yes, it probably does. If you can easily get cold in the Marrakesh when the sun disappears behind the clouds, you can actually get hypothermia in the Induction Pro. But then again, if you're on holiday visiting, I don't know, the south of France, you're going to Spain, you're going to Italy, you go riding in Morocco or a trip to India or Australia, yes, the Induction might be the way to go. There's another thing that we like about the Induction Pro. It comes with shaped level 2 D30 armour, as opposed to the level 1 armour, remember, in the Baja S4. And that, it's going to be said, is going to make the Induction Pro more reassuring to ride in than the Marrakesh with its level 1 Ghost. But to counter this, if you were to upgrade the Marrakesh to take level 2 Diablo, you would be evening things up somewhat. And from memory, I think that would bring the two jackets certainly out at about the same price. Both the Induction Pro and the Marrakesh rate AA for abrasion resistance under EN 17092, by the way. The problem for some will be that the Induction Pro is simply not so nice to wear, not so comfortable, and not so easy to live with as the Marrakesh. And we see this a lot in the shop in the reactions of our customers. We put them in the Induction Pro, we sing its praises, but most people end up taking the Marrakesh. It's a matter, I imagine, of heart over head. Now, right now, there isn't a matching Induction Pro pants for the jacket, but there is the slightly older model, it's just called the Induction Pant. It's pretty similar, but it comes with level 1 armour. The leg of that pant is wide enough to go over an off-road boot, as you might expect from Klim. Now, we really like the Induction Pro. In some ways, we prefer it to the Baja S4 because of its much better armour. But for most, it's not realistically an alternative to the Marrakesh, and that's because it's so much more extreme. If you need or want that extra airflow, so be it. But sometimes what you want is not the same as what you need. If you're interested in buying a Klim suit, you should come to see us. And that's for a number of reasons. We've been working with Klim for a long time now. We know the range well, and we're probably better placed than anybody to advise you on the suit that's going to work best for the kind of riding that you do. And we understand how to get the best from Klim suits. Now, within minutes of meeting you, we should be able to tell you what suits are going to work for you and what suits won't. And you will not leave here until we can be sure that we've found the right suit for you. We'll sit you on the bike here in the shop, we'll zip the two halves together, we'll make sure that the arms and the leg lengths are right and that the elbow and the knee and the shoulder armour sit in the right place. And I have to tell you, often it doesn't. Although in our experience, for every problem there's a solution, so you shouldn't worry about it. But the main reason you should come and see us perhaps is because we have more Klim stock in the building than probably any other retailer in the world. Currently we have more than £1 million worth of Klim stock under this roof. Now, one of the problems with Klim in our view is that they have many internet dealers who are very adept at uploading Klim's gear onto their websites. But those same dealers are often much less adept at stocking it in their shops. Turn up at a lot of Klim dealers expecting to try on a suit, let alone more than one suit, and it's likely that you're going to end up disappointed. They won't have their jackets in many sizes, and they certainly won't be carrying the trousers in all their leg lengths. Some of these retailers will feature, I've got to say, a wider range of colourways on their websites than we do. We tend, as a matter of principle, to do less colour variations, but we try to hold all of the sizes in stock. And of course, nobody offers the sheer breadth of Klim's range in the way that we do. Okay, so we don't offer the Badlands for reasons we have alluded to, but we do sit on significant amounts of the other 6 suits. So if you're serious about a Klim outfit, if you want to make sure that you get the choice right, and if you want to make sure that the suit fits the way it should, come and see us in Guildford. It really is your best shot. We are the Klim people. Well, I hope you found that interesting. If you'd like to see more Klim gear, visit the website motorlegends.com. If you'd like to learn more about any of these suits in particular, then obviously you can do that on the website. Now, when you're on the website, you can check out the spec of any particular suit, you can check on availability, and obviously if you want to buy one of them, you can do that there and then. Now, we try to make the process of buying something from us as simple, straightforward and risk-free as we possibly can. There's no delivery charge on any item of protective wear, returns are totally free, and what's more, we give you a full 12 months in which to decide whether you do want to return something to us. We have the best price promise in the business. Now, John Lewis used to be rightly famed for its never knowingly undersold price promise. Well, we go one stage better. If you can find anybody selling anything that we sell at a price that is lower than ours, we will beat that competitor's price by a full 10%. Now, there are a few terms and conditions associated with what we call our price beat. Nothing particularly onerous, I can assure you, but if you are going to attempt to price beat us, I suggest you go over to the website and check out what the details are. Now, in the future, if you'd like to see bulletins from us about new products, if you go to the website, at the top of the page, there's a piece of script that says newsletter sign up. Click on that, within seconds you'll be in business. If, however, you prefer to get your information videographically, by which I mean in this form, then we'd be simply delighted if you wanted to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can do that by clicking on the button below. Finally, I'd like to make mention of our fabulous little shop here at Motor Legends. We're based about a mile from the centre of Guildford, a mile from the railway station. Now, as I've suggested, it's a small shop, it's got a small footprint, but it's attached to our warehouse where we have more than £4 million worth of stock arranged over 3 floors. And that technically makes this the second largest motorcycle apparel shop in the country. But we would like to think of ourselves as far more than just the amount of merchandise we have here in the building. We're all about service, we're all about personal fitting. If you want to check us out, visit Trustpilot. We have the highest 5-star rating in the business. When you come to see us, we'll serve you only the finest Italian elite coffee, or we'll serve you proper Yorkshire tea in a proper teapot. And if you're lucky, you might even get to sample one of our delicious motorcycle-shaped shortbread biscuits. Anyway, this has been Chris. I hope to talk to you again soon.